Hello, and welcome to another edition of the DevOps Podcast. As always, the views represented in this podcast are the individuals alone and do not represent the corporation they work for. Thanks and enjoy. Welcome to the DevOps Podcast.
It's real. Cheers.
Cheers, Clinky. All right, so today I am sitting here with the esteemed Tameem Hourani. Do I ever pronounce your name correctly?
You do. You give
Is
me
that
too much
correct?
credit every time, though.
I love making you blush. So for those of you that don't know, we've got a webinar together that's public where we talked about some of the change management stuff, which is very, very scripted and very focused on work stuff. Today I wanted to get together with Tameem and just kind of talk about his history, how he got here, his new company that he started with all of his brilliant intellectual property that he created, and just chat, man. I'm in Boston. That's where he's
Boston.
Boston.
We're in Boston.
Pack the car. Got any chance?
We're in Boston, yeah. Right on. It's raining out. Winter's almost here.
Yeah.
It is. We'll
Not
be
where
looking
I
back
live.
at this in 5 years and laughing.
Yeah. No, I did the thing where I always show up and I always forget about seasons. So I got off the plane and I landed and it's like 60 degrees and I literally had on like swimming trunk shorts, like real short ones, and a t-shirt, and I was freezing.
Yeah, it's gotten cold.
Yeah, I do that about twice a year. Cool, man. So tell us what's up. How you doing?
What's up? I'm doing well. Yeah, excited. Thanks for having me.
Bring this a little closer.
You're always got these creative. Sorry. I'll move a little closer. How's that?
That's beautiful.
Better.
Right there. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. You've always got this cool stuff going on. I didn't know about the podcast until last night. Was it last night? Yeah. I think
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then you were blown away when you saw me unpacking all of it. You're like, you brought all that with you?
Yeah, dude. There's a lot of stuff here.
I carry all of it with me.
Is it all on video? It's all like,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We're recording.
Even all like the gear.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, no, I can only see like my laptop. But anyway.
Yeah, no, it's a dedication. That's what it is. No, it sounds great. I sound good, right?
Yeah, man. Sultry.
Yeah, how did it all start? It's been fun. I think we worked at EMC together at some point.
Yeah, I think we did overlap.
We didn't know about it, which is, I mean, that's like half of EMC, right? No one knows you're there at the same time.
You're too busy traveling.
Yeah, I didn't do much traveling there. I ran operations, so I was kind of. You ever been to the when they take customers around to the big IT office and they show them the war room and the knock and all that crazy stuff? It was pretty cool, actually. It was
like
cool.
the EBC
Yeah,
type stuff?
Yeah, exactly. So I did the EBC stuff. Yeah, I did that for a couple years, 3 years, 4 years. Learned a lot there. Did a lot of virtualization was new at the time. Got into my networking world. Bit of security. Cisco. I was a Cisco guy at one point.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Very cool.
So that was 2010, right after college. And then moved to PTC. Have you heard of PTC?
Yeah, I left there right at 2008. That's when we started the startup reseller.
Yeah,
bunch of us ex-EMCers.
I missed you by 2 years. I was interning there in 2009, and then I started my work in 2010.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was there. Then went to Pete Parametric. I don't know if you heard of them, out of Needham. They were the first company to invent CAD before AutoCAD.
Really?
Yeah,
No kidding.
It's called Creo.
Oh, very cool.
And it's still used by all the big guys, manufacturing, all the big, like the really intense CAD companies use Creo.
No kidding.
Which I learned there, yeah. Pretty cool stuff. Motorcycles, KTM uses them, all the big guys. I ran their cloud division for just under a year. It's actually funny how I joined Wayfair, because I went from there to Wayfair. But there was, Wayfair had these like really crazy referral bonuses.
Oh, yeah.
So someone reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, hey, you interested in joining Wayfair? And I was like, nah, I just moved to this job. I'm good. And it's been a few months. I'm not ready to move. And the next day, the recruiter reaches out and says, hey, I heard you were connected with so-and-so, and you're really excited to come meet the team. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm gonna stay put. Why don't you come in a couple hours, talk to the team, see everything. I was like, all right, fine. So I came in, met I think 6 or 8 people that day. Very, very serious interview process. And I left there thinking, wow, I think I want to work here, which is pretty cool.
That is very cool.
And so joined Wayfair in 2015, I think. End of December of 15. And that was best work experience I've ever had.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. The talent there, it was intimidating. Walking in there, I still remember walking in there and just talking to all the engineers was like, wow, this place is like top talent. And I was fortunate to have been there and learned from all the people around me. I think if it wasn't for my 3 years there, I would not have been where I am today. Not this company, not the DevOps knowledge, not the exposure I had, and there's still so much more to gain if I had stayed there longer, right? And I think we were just talking about this. If I ever find myself looking for a job again, I'd go right back to Wayfair. Just a great team, great culture, very very curious. The engineering group there is just, everyone's curious, everyone wants to learn, and I think this is just a great culture, right? And I don't give them enough credit. The 2 founders, Steve and Neeraj, I still see them around town sometimes. Great people, super humble, and they've really put together a great company.
That's awesome. So I don't know if everybody knows your history, but can you tell us a little bit about how you created a lot of the founding DevOps work with ServiceNow? And I tell everybody that you kind of invented, or you're one of the big pioneers of ChatOps, because in the DevOps space, that's an architecture that we heard about, but no one really ever accomplished it. And then when I first saw your reference architecture, somebody, I think it was Zaki, sent it to me. Yeah. He's like, hey, check out the work that this guy just did. And I'm like, that's ChatOps.
That makes sense.
I'm like, that's the first time I've ever seen it. And I'm like, does it work? And he's like, it's actually working. And so yeah. So I kind of give you the props as being one of the leading
I can't take it. If
space.
Anything, it was the engineers on our team at the time. I definitely can't take credit for it. But the idea is, the concept is, so I always say chat's the one UI, the universal UI that everyone understands. No one needs to learn how to use chat.
I'm still blown away by Slack.
It's fantastic.
Like I always thought it was just another chat program, which at this point, when I joined ServiceNow, we had 3. And I'm like,
one more.
Another chat program? Why do I want to use this? Well, this one's cool. You can do like Giphy space and then type. And I'm just like, that's not that impressive. Man. Like, come on. But then when I learned what you were doing, I'm like, wait, it can do all of that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was crazy. So tell us a little bit, because I don't think anybody else, other than the folks that know you,
I'm sure people have used it. It's just the concept of not having to context switch and jump from UI to UI. Like, I think that what you're referencing is the ServiceNow ChatOps bot, which is now actually on the store. We've released it on the ServiceNow store as a bot you can download and use. But the idea being is you don't need to log into ServiceNow to interact with ServiceNow. You can do it straight from Slack or Microsoft Teams. And conceptually, it applies to anything, right? I mean, you can do it for Trello, you can do it for Jira, you can do it for all these other tools, but you do everything from one UI, which is Slack or Teams, right, or chat, and you save a ton of time. Like I've seen ChatOps implementations where people are running commands on servers from Slack.
That's incredible.
You just go around like a DF or whatever, like an aux, PS, anything. And the response comes right back to Slack, and you don't even need to log into a server. The use cases are just crazy, the stuff that's been out there.
So how do you operate DevOps through like CI/CD? Because when I looked at your reference architecture, it was like pretty much the entire communications bus is done through Slack.
Yeah,
so
totally.
How do you do that? Like, how does the operational flow work?
So inbound and outbound, some of the stuff you don't need to talk to, you just need to know about, right? So that's
like, do I just query Jira and say, hey, give me the next story that's assigned to me?
Yeah. So there's like the janky integrations that are all command line, which like you have to remember all the commands and you got to use help, and then it just feels like you're back in Windows 95,
right?
Or DOS, right? But then there's the good ones that are UI based and like buttons and interfaces. Those are the ones that really make life easy. The command line based ones are a little tough. It's just a bot. You're just like, it's literally commands, like a / Giphy and a text.
Right.
That's what it is, right? But then the better ones where you can like click on a drop down menu and you can see what Jira project you're in. You can navigate and you can show a list of all open Jira tasks as part of that project, and it's all UI within Slack. But the nice thing is,
does it iframe that? How does it bring it in the
that's
UI,
the
or
thing.
do you have
It's
to customize it?
It's a bot. You have to build a
nice.
Slack
build the
bot, but the UI for the Slack bot is the same.
Oh, cool.
So a drop-down menu looks the same regardless of what's on the back end, right? So this we've all seen the Slack drop-down and the Slack buttons. They all look the same, even though you're interacting with so many different applications on the back end. That's the magic. I think that's the magic.
Right. You only have to teach people one UI.
Right. Exactly. And then you know what you're pulling out of Jira, so you don't have to think about that. It's just how do I navigate, and the navigation is the same every single time. So it's really, really powerful. I think that's the future of a lot of work operations. The thing is, a lot of people don't unlock that until you start using it.
Yeah.
Once you start using it, like, holy shit, holy cow. Sorry, I shouldn't have
Yeah.
said that.
It's all right. I'll beep it.
Yeah, exactly.
This is unfiltered. That's the nice part about it.
It is cool, nice. I can say whatever I want.
Don't get too carried away. Then I'll have
With
to.
moderation.
Right.
Yeah, no, chat ops for sure. That's I don't think anyone can argue that anymore. Maybe when it first came out, there was a lot of like, hey, this is just chat. It's cool chat. It works well. It syncs with my phone.
Right.
But once you get into like the actual use cases and bots, I don't know how many bots are there on the Slack workplace right now. I don't know.
I have
It's
no
gonna be
idea.
hundreds, if not thousands.
I am actually not a Slack expert. That's why I'm just blown away.
Slack's,
That, like,
yeah.
holy cow, you guys use that for everything? Like,
Yeah. Well, Microsoft Teams is pretty good too now, relative to Skype. It's I was impressed. When we built that bot, it was pretty flexible, usable. It wasn't that much different than what Slack had out there.
no, it's like somebody kind of poked that bear and woke him up. I think between Box and Slack,
Yeah.
like, if you look at, we switched back to OneDrive recently, but at first I was like, no, we can't go back to OneDrive. It doesn't do versioning. It doesn't do this. And then I started using the new version. I'm like, oh my God, wait, no, it does do that. They got all these ideas now.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, they've pretty well matched parity for feature.
They've come a long way. I think Microsoft the last 5 years has been phenomenal for Microsoft. Like Azure, you look at Azure DevOps, the tool suite.
Oh, that whole
It's
ADL
fantastic.
piece is
yeah.
huge.
Yeah. Really good tool. Like they'll go head to head with Jenkins, no problem. With Bitbucket, GitLab, it's very comparable.
Yeah, I mean, ever since college, I know there was the, you kind of had the snobs that were like Java and C programmers, and then you had, oh, you're a .NET developer, and it's
Don't
like,
talk to me.
right. And then when I was in college, I tell this story. I think I told it with Chris Pope, so I don't want to tell it again. But it was basically, I had a professor that kind of schooled me, gave me some humble pie, and he's like, "Oh, you think that?" Because I was, I was towing the line, the cool kid line of the only good programmers can write in C, and he's like, "Yeah, really?" He goes, "Okay, well, let's have a competition. We'll both write a web browser." And this is literally '96, so. And he goes, you use, C, you write your own custom browser, and I'm going to go ahead and use Visual Basic.
Yeah.
And he goes, and we'll race. And he goes, do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first? I was like, dude, it's going to take me a month.
Yeah, exactly.
And he goes, okay, then I'll go first. He sits down. He brings up Visual Basic. It was, Visual Studio back in the day. It was 4.0 Visual Basic. Instantiates the Internet Explorer, library, and then boom, 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 drags a couple buttons, changes a couple things, and he goes, okay, I'm done. Like 6 minutes. And he goes, okay, your turn.
Yeah, exactly.
and I go, dude, it's going to take me forever. Like, and he goes, yeah, so if I'm a company and I'm hiring two different developers, am I going to hire the guy that can get it done in 6 minutes or the guy that's going to take months?
Yeah, totally.
And that was an eye opener. It was a slap in the face. I was like, okay, maybe I need to pay attention to.
Yeah, their presence with the Linux. I mean, they're just Elcow. I don't know if you come across that Linux containers on Windows. It's a whole new. It's just basically Linux. That's what it is. Linux containers on Windows hosts. You no longer have to go deploy RHEL or CentOS or whatever to run Linux containers. You can actually run on Windows, and that alone is like, to the Windows community, it's like, all right, well, I don't need to learn Linux anymore.
Right.
I can just run it right in it, and I think it's part of the 2019 suite. But I ran into a customer talking about that, I think last month. And he's like, hey, what are you guys doing? Any work with Elcow? I was like, what the hell's Elcow?
Right.
And you look into it, wow, it really does work. Like they're doing container, Docker in Windows. They're doing all sorts of cool stuff. It's not much different anymore.
No, I mean, I remember being at VMware years ago, and what year was that? It would have been like 2012, probably.
Yeah.
And at the time, our CEO was, God, I can't ever remember names.
Gelsinger?
No,
Gelsinger?
prior to Gelsinger. He went over to ran Pivot.
Moritz.
Yeah, Moritz.
Moritz.
He was such a nice guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have so many cool stories about just how humble he was. Like, he was standing in line with all the rest of us at VMworld one year, and the concierge like figured out who it was because everybody had whispered like, that's our CEO, go get him. And so the concierge like races out there and he's like, I'm good, I can stand in line just with everybody else. And he refused to like get special treatment. It just made him cool.
Yeah.
But at one point he was saying that the operating system is no longer going to be a control point in it like 5 years. And so he was already seeing a world where like, and it was right after like the iPad had started really changing things. And so he saw that and he was like, at some point, we're not going to care about an operating system. We are going to get to a point where we only care about the apps that are running and nothing underneath matters.
How they're running,
And he kind of called that. And then, dude, now I look at infrastructure. I mean, I've been out of the infrastructure game now for about 4 years, but I still follow it at a distance. But when I look at Kubernetes and I look at all these things, it's just like,
exactly what it is.
You don't even need an operating system. You just need like throw this out in the cloud and it'll run.
And if it breaks, it'll fix itself, right? Shoot itself
insane.
in the head and start again. It's crazy.
Yeah, and from the days at VMware, we were envisioning all of that. It hadn't become a reality. So, So since you're much more in the weeds with customers, how much you're working with a lot of the what I would call regulated companies, which is phenomenal for me because we use Wayfair. I mean, I talk about it every day, like as just one of the unicorns, the DevOps unicorns that Gene talks about continually. But you're also working with all of the horses. So I'm curious, like
ponies, donkeys.
Horses are cool. I didn't want to go donkey
too far.
Many are still donkeys, but no. I mean, it's curious to me, like how many of these companies do you see successfully adopting these modern technologies?
They're very progressive. They're a lot more progressive than we give them credit for. And I think what happens is there's like pockets of it that's not very widely adopted because of the regulatory requirements. But once you start digging into these different pockets, there's super, super smart people at these places that are just, they have to work in particular environments or they're shielded by their leadership or they're told, hey, go figure it out. I'll worry about the politics or whatever. And that's where you kind of come to a crossroads of, all right, how do we make this really good talent shine without pissing off the regulators and all that stuff, right? But it's funding. These banks have great funding, right? And it's like, hey, if I don't invest, PayPal is going to come after me, or Venmo is going to come after whoever, right? There's going to be the next big thing. So they invest a lot of money, and they have some really, really smart people. Like the first time I ever saw, you were talking about this yesterday, developer portal, right? So a new developer comes in, they want to spin up their environment. The first time I saw it built by, I think, a top 5 bank in the world, they can spin up a developer environment in 15 seconds. Pipeline, repositories, dev container, everything. 15 seconds. One command line. You hit it, you get back all your payloads.
That's incredible.
And it's like, well, there's nothing out there that does that today, right? They're saying there's
Is that open source project we were talking about?
No, it's not open source. It's closed source.
Oh, I got you.
It's internal, yeah.
I wonder if that's the same one.
I don't know. We can share notes
okay,
offline.
Fair enough.
But
I thought there's one that's open source that's run by like a financial services company started it, and then it's open. I thought it was open source. It's like a UI for that stuff. But
so theirs is an UI. Theirs is a command line.
Oh, I gotcha. Never mind.
Yeah. So it runs. It's an OpenShift, Jenkins, Bitbucket. I think you deploy an Artifactory. Something like you get your own dev environment. We're ready to go, right?
That's amazing.
It runs locally on containers, and if you're ready to do it, you generate your Docker image and you just drop it in Artifactory, and something picks it up and Terraform puts it somewhere.
That's awesome. We were pretty close to that at the bank, but like I said, we just kept hitting the regulatory problems of getting through change and release management. It was a nightmare.
Right. So that's where we came into play, right? It's like, hey, I have this great thing, but we can't use it to go to prod because we got to fill out this change form every single time and then enter the DevOps product. And I think that's where kind of we all met, right?
Yeah.
And that crossroads of DevOps.
Yeah, well, I mean, I spend all day in marketing. So the thing that I love talking to you is that, half the stuff I'm saying could be made up. Everybody thinks that anyway because I'm in marketing. But what I love to hear is when you tell the real world stories about how our product really is helping people. And this isn't a product pitch at all. It's really cool when I hear you say like, no, these guys really overcame X by doing this. And of course I tell those stories every day, but you're the one that actually gets to live them.
It's great to see. It's nice to see that your change approvers and your change managers are happy, but it's a lot more rewarding when you see your developers and they're like, holy cow, you just saved me a lifetime of filling out forms. You don't understand how great this is, right? and developers are generally smart people. Like
Right.
they like to build things, and they're very in the weeds, and it's not easy to impress developers. It's not easy to impress developers with ServiceNow, right?
Yeah.
But then you come in, you're like, hey, here's a solution that's gonna make your life easier. And you see their face light up, and when it starts working, they're like, yeah, more commits. Yeah, this is working, right? You want us to test? Yeah, we'll keep testing. And they're super engaged. You're like, wow, this really does work, and there's a need for it. And these developers want to get out. They want to get out of the business of filling out forms, right? And
Yeah, that's the statistics I was talking about yesterday. So I spend most of my time talking to analysts now when I'm not presenting or out on the road. But some of the numbers I got back were just insane to me, and I've memorized them just because they are so like that's crazy.
Yeah.
But the one that kills me is that it said 61% of developers spend less than 4 hours a day writing code, which was just like that's insane. Like, and when I think back to the days at the bank, I'm like that's probably pretty damn accurate. Like,
yeah, totally.
And then the second part was, and we were joking about this yesterday with the whole group, but the second big statistic was that 70% of development that's done is keeping the lights on or stuff that's being rewritten that is not value add to like innovation or anything else.
Yeah.
So then you start thinking about it, you're like, okay, so wait, 4 hours a day, like they're spending then 60% of their time. So they're like 1 hour a day, they're actually writing creative, innovative things. And then that's when I shared this story with you guys. I was like, do you know how many PDF generators we had at the bank? Oh, and everybody was like, 60, 50? I'm like, there were 1,500. And everybody just gasped because it's like, what?
Yeah.
And I used to make a joke when I was at the bank was like, if you could get every one of our developers, all 30,000 into a stadium and then have everybody raise, who here spent more than a week writing a PDF generator? You have 1,500 people raise their hands. It's like, what a waste.
You know what's funny is we just started working with a customer that wants to convert a PDF generator into a change form, and they're in the financial industry.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, it's a big thing with all the e-doc. I mean, we were still taking faxes. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's a different era.
Well, no, they still do.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Long story, and I don't know if I can actually share that. I might get in trouble, but let's just say they figured out they charge people per fax. Yeah. And they figured out that as a revenue generation stream, it makes X amount of money.
So keep it.
And the cost to rewrite it is more than, and it would lose that revenue stream. So it just made no sense. So they just keep faxes around.
Wow.
Yeah, it was insane.
I just heard of a company, I think it was a week or 2 weeks ago, that got breached. Oh, they got ransomwared, and they went out and bought every fax in Europe, and they used those to communicate because they didn't have the ability to. They didn't want to pay like the Bitcoin or whatever the crypto they were asked for the ransomware. So they just went out and bought every single fax they could get their hands on.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It's still around there. It works.
Dude, ransomware scares the heck out of me.
Yeah, it's real, dude. It's very, very real.
Like, I have so many computers that, like, that would never matter. I mean, I went cloud on everything. But if they somehow get into my cloud account,
you're done.
Then, like, all my stuff is up.
But that's more flexible, though, right? Like, there's ways to, like, prove your identity. And, like big cloud companies will work with you, right? But yeah, if for whatever reason you're locked out, you're in trouble. Yeah,
but like once a year I try and pull everything onto physical hard drives that I keep in a safe. I'm a little neurotic about it, but yeah, anyway. So that's a good question, kind of a good segue. So we've been dancing around this within ServiceNow as well as a lot of the customers I talk to. It's interesting to see for me still in DevOps, just to frame this thought, like I've been to so many conferences this year. Sure. And it's like I go to these Agile conferences and it's a different group of people. Then I go to a DevOps conference. Yeah. To then I go to like a Jenkins World. Yeah. And you kind of run the gamut of like the persona that you see at the Agile conference are typically what used to be project managers and are now product managers or some part of a PMO. Yeah. And then you have everybody at the DevOps conferences are like, they're the ones that are kind of part of the COE, Center of Excellence, or type of group. Sure. And then like at the Jenkins conference, it's all developers. But when you're talking to all of them, they're still very just disjointed. And it shocks me because I'm like, I thought DevOps was like 10 years old and I thought everybody was tearing down silos and everybody's coming together. And it's kind of shocking to me that there's still such a division between the teams. Are you seeing that more and more? Or are you starting to see teams come together?
It's the nature of that space, right? I don't see it as a bad thing. Yeah. That like disjointed just means, hey, developers want to be in the weeds writing code. They don't really care for how they're being assigned tasks, right? And then you get to the product manager. The product manager is like, hey, I got to make sure that whatever my customer is asking for, I can prioritize, and I'm oversimplifying every single one of these roles, right?
Okay.
But hey, I mean, you look at like Eric Ries, right? Eric Ries's feedback loop. What's it called? The Lean Startup. I don't know if you read that book. And that's what he says, right? Is just keep a tight feedback loop and make sure you keep iterating, right? And a developer just wants to write cool code. So you give a developer a task, okay, what's the most efficient way I can write this piece of code in like 30 lines instead of 200 lines? They don't care. I mean, of course they care what they're working on, but I mean, 9 out of 10 times they just want to write cool code. If a product manager says, hey, this sprint you're going to work on these with these other people, like, all right, cool, let's work together and build cool. Why we decided to work on this feature instead of that feature, or why we're prioritizing this, that's what the product manager works on, right? Then the product manager doesn't care how the code's written. You give me my code and it works and it does what I asked it to. I don't care if it's a line or 700 lines, right? It's like, so it's not, I don't think it's that bad. Like the separation of roles, yeah, it is separated, but I don't think it's a bad thing, right? I think back at Wayfair. I mean, you had technical product managers that may have been developers in the past, and I still don't think, as long as like the code isn't impacting performance, it doesn't really matter how the code's written, right? If you're writing the same feature and one takes 7 seconds to load and one takes a second to load, yeah, of course there's going to be a conversation. But if both take a second to load and one's 700 lines, one's 200 lines, no one cares. The developer's really into making it 150 lines, right? So that's what, or like using new libraries or using something their friend told them about, or like I don't think it's a bad thing. But yeah, they are very distant. Like Jenkins World is all developers. How do I deploy code faster? Yeah. And even probably at that conference is probably, how do I shrink my build times from 30 minutes to 25 minutes to 20 minutes, right? And that becomes another. I remember when I was at Wayfair, one of the bigger things was, it got to a point there's just so many builds happening. It would take and so many tests running, it would take like 30 to 35 minutes per build. And then the guys on the development platforms team, DevPlats, they went back and made some changes, whatever, and now the builds were like a 2.5 minute build, and all the developers thought something was broken. It's like, how do we go from 35 minutes to 2.5 minutes? No, something's wrong. Run it again. It's like, yeah, it's still 2.5 minutes. And like, guys, this is the new normal. It works. It's like, so you're nerding out on different things. And like the product manager doesn't give a crap, right? You're still trying to make things better. So yeah, it's different. It's different personas, but I don't think they'll all become kumbaya.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I was just, we talk about the pizza box teams, right? Of just getting all the people in the war room together working. And that's why I was curious if you see more of that, or if you just like, it sounds like you see more of the developers just want to be writing code.
Totally, that's fine.
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that. It doesn't have to be like a hunky-dory birthday party. Everyone's gonna do their own thing.
Did you ever see? Did you ever watch Silicon Valley? I'm sure you did.
Yeah, that was a good show.
I've only watched the first, I think, 2 seasons, but I literally have snippets of the video that I sometimes will show people, where I'm just like talking about agile teams and having them work on Kanban and like all this stuff. And when they're doing that whole thing, and half the stuff you can't use at work because it's but it's just so much funny, because he's like, I thought I was writing the network stack. He's like, no, I've been writing the network stack. And then they're just not communicating, and it's like they're both working on the same code. Then they hire that kid that comes in, that like
long hair
wunderkind that ends up saying I'll fix everything.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Because do you know how the internet works? Do you know that line? Do you know how the internet works?
Yeah, that show's amazing.
It's a good show. I haven't watched enough of it though. I've probably seen like maybe 10 episodes. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
It was dragging for me, and I was kind of like, no. But then the season finale to season 1 was so hysterically funny that I literally was like, this is the best show I've seen. This was so good.
Yeah, it's a good show.
And then I haven't gotten back to it since. I'm not even sure I watched the second season, but the season finale for episode 1, I tell everybody, you have to go watch it, because it's the funniest bit of television I've ever seen.
Nice.
But anyway, so tell us more about the, this. I don't even know that we've really fully explained it for anybody, but you wrote this whole system leveraging ServiceNow as kind of the service management layer. You had Slack as your primary, system of engagement, UI and engagement layer. And then you were basically using that to run all of your CI/CD at Wayfair. Is that an accurate statement, or close?
Everything ran through Slack. Most everything ran through Slack. Yeah, absolutely. It was we use ServiceNow in a very I say unorthodox way, right? We never used the UI. Everything was integrated through ServiceNow. It was all kind of API to API driven. A lot of webhooks, event based, etc., etc. but yeah, that's where it all started. Like this whole product that we talk about today, that's really where it all started. And it was we're working with a couple guys at ServiceNow. It was Sean Millen. I don't know. Do you know Sean?
Oh yeah,
Millen?
I know Sean really well.
Sean Millen, Ruben. I don't think Ruben's left.
Yeah, he was there too. Ruben Stump.
And Alex Patel, and Ben Sawyer was involved as well.
That's awesome.
You know Ben.
It's literally the old VMware crew. We all work together.
Yeah,
at VMware.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we were like brainstorming back and forth, and it was a really, really janky solution at the time. Like, it didn't work, and we went back and forth and spent a ton of time troubleshooting. But we got it to a point where it was functional and usable, and I think it was like GitLab, Jenkins. There was no project management at the time. It was just like all the core tooling piece, and then we were just gathering data and piecing it all together, and it was all hands off. You didn't do anything to the UI. You didn't even know it was running in the background, right? It just did its thing, ran in the background, and it was there if you ever needed it.
No,
So,
I've been joking about that, not to interrupt you, but it's the pipeline visualizations coming in like 1.7, 1.8-ish time frame. But I've been telling Anand Ahire, who's our product engineering manager, he runs all the dev for this product. But I was telling him, I'm like, I cannot wait till we get a pipeline visualization so I can actually demo our software, because I spend most of my days demoing GitHub, Jenkins.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I never go to our interface unless I'm showing you
but that's
what
a selling
happened.
point, right?
No, I know, it's pretty
As
cool.
a developer, you're like, hey, just grab your laptop, do your thing. Don't worry about going into ServiceNow. And that's great. Like, devs love that. Just work out of Slack, like we say, right?
Right. Eliminating swivel chair was like the first, 4 years ago when I joined this company, that was what they said. I was like, so what does ServiceNow really do? Like, we eliminate the swivel chair between systems, we automate and orchestrate. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And now I get it.
And that's all in Slack, right? A layer above. Like ServiceNow and Jenkins and Bitbucket and Jira is like
that's incredible.
Abstracted.
Yeah. I need to, I want to come see more demos of that stuff.
Slack stuff.
Yeah.
We should. We don't do enough marketing it. We probably should do something around that. It's really, everyone that sees is like, holy crap, this is super hard. We showed it to someone yesterday. I can't remember who I showed it to. Might have been John Downs.
Yeah.
But he's like, wow, this is really useful. Like, this is, and yeah, it's useful. I mean, it helps, right? It just makes life easy.
Well, I sit in all the marketing meetings that we have where we're trying to figure out. So for those of you that don't know, and God knows when I'm actually going to get this posted because I'm way behind, but hopefully it'll be before we GA, which is the end of October. So if that happens, then before we GA, we're actually GAing product at the end of this month. And so the idea there is that we'll actually be doing a controlled GA of it in the store and releasing this code finally that we've been talking about for a year. And yeah, so it's going to be really exciting to see that and to demo it and to get it, more of that out there. But from a marketing perspective, we keep sitting in these meetings like doing go-to-market planning and what are our banners going to say? What are our things going to say? And I was like, I wish I could just write like, we take all the crap that the developers don't want to do and off the table. Yeah. So I just keep repeating that in meetings because they're like, so how would you summarize what we're doing? I'm like, dude, developers hate it. Developers hate all this minutia of paperwork, of filling out forms, sitting in CAB meetings, doing all this other stuff. I'm like, we just get rid of all that. Yep. And so I don't know how you want to gussy that up with marketing, but we're just making their life better.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's
you hit on it. You're like, yeah, why don't you tell the developers that they don't have to do this?
Like, how can I help you build this faster?
Right.
Yeah, we're doing that this morning with one of the early adopter customers. Like, it's like, I created a script to run test commits, so I don't have to keep doing it. Just let me know whenever you want. I'm just gonna hit go. I was like, all right, great.
That's awesome.
But it works, right? They just want it to work, and it makes life easy, for sure.
Very cool. So tell us more about this the bot that you put up in the store. I haven't even seen it yet, and I know I really want to talk to you about the other controversial piece because we can spend some good time on that.
The controversial piece.
Yeah, the karma.
Oh yeah.
We'll get to your other super innovative thing, which is awesome.
Yeah, so that's actually that Google was doing that in like 08 or 09. I don't know if you remember. They were actually using it to rate their developers, and then at some point stopped doing it.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, it's counterintuitive, et cetera. But they were using data to kind of measure developer performance. I mean, I don't think they call it developer karma. We call it developer karma because of Reddit, which is pretty cool. But and we trademarked the name developer karma, which is also pretty cool.
Oh, I didn't know that. I better stop using it then.
You can use it all you want. I'm just paying my royalties.
I love it.
No, it's back to the bot.
Yeah, go back to the bot first, and then we'll get to the karma thing.
Bot. So it's essentially it hooks up Microsoft Teams. Or it does just go, but the bot hooks up to your ServiceNow instance, and anytime as a ServiceNow user, anytime you need to take action on something ServiceNow, you no longer have to do it through ServiceNow. You can do it through the bot. So let's say you've got a team and someone requested a new laptop and you got to go approve it. You just do it from Slack. Or you want to update work notes and say, hey, you're too early, you can't do that. You do it from Slack. You don't have to go into ServiceNow. You don't have to reply to an email, right? You can do it through email today. There's a few different ways to do it. It just comes right to your Slack chat, right? And then if you're working on incidents, if you're in IT, if you're in the NOC somewhere and you get an incident to work on, same thing. You could reassign it from Slack. You could close it from Slack, update work notes, change the status code, all that stuff. It's just essentially the workspace in Slack, so you don't have to dive into ServiceNow. So the bot was built on the premise of use chat ops where you can. One of the interesting things we found is approvals that are done through the bot take less than 14 minutes on average. Approvals done through email take 17 hours.
Wow.
Just because they're going through email.
Oh, I'm going to be repeating that everywhere.
Yeah, the product or the bot ships with a dashboard. So when you download and install it, there's a dashboard out of the box that shows you all your stats.
Oh, that's awesome.
And you can very quickly start to see if something was done through the bot. It's way, way, way quicker than something that's done through Slack, through email or through the UI.
That's awesome. Back when I first got to ServiceNow, Frank Slootman had just taken over as CEO, and he talked about our mobile app and notifications and approvals, and he always talked about this concept of data following you and chasing you down. Yeah. And it was always cool because he lived in like the world where he would show up at work as an executive and there'd be real manila interoffice memos in his inbox, and he would spend all day opening an envelope, reading it, writing whatever edits, putting it in his outbox. And he's like, all we did was digitize that same crappy manual process, and we call it email now. He goes, but it's this all day long. You're buried in Exchange, looking at Outlook, opening manila envelopes, writing notes to it, and then
that's very true, right? It's not very different. It's just electronic. Yeah.
Well, if you're using the fancy new word, it's digital.
Digital, yeah. Sorry.
Come on.
Digital, yeah. Get with the times, right? I'm getting old. Right. Yeah, it's true. It has the process is the same, right? It's just behind a screen now.
Well, he sort of was fortune telling a world in the future where we would get away from like email completely. No one would use it anymore. And I've never seen a possible like working interface do that until I was using Slack.
Yeah, there's pros and cons. Like I use email when it's a serious message. Yeah. Right. When you want a serious tone or there's something that's formal, then you'd use email. The other thing I don't like.
Well, it's kind of like I handwrite letters when I'm writing them to my wife or my kids.
Right.
Like,
all right.
Because there's something very special about putting that,
Totally.
Plus, we call it a millennial cryptography. I write in cursive so my kids can't read it.
Oh, really? They don't know how to read.
They were never taught cursive. Wow. We've been teaching them ourselves, but yeah,
I don't think I could write cursive anymore.
It cramps my hand. Like we were talking about this, my daughter. Well, this is a total side note, but
I'm trying to think of like the O, right? Like the O with the thing on top.
With the little curly. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the F, like you go up and down.
The Q. I can't do a lowercase Q in my head right now.
Q. Yeah, it Q's the O.
It's that weird Z thingy.
Off topic.
No, and there's a whole nother topic for the fact that my 8-year-old is having handwriting challenges, and my wife and I keep getting arguments because I'm like, she's never going to use it.
Yeah, forget it.
And I was like, we gave her an iPad when she was 2. She's used an iPad since she's 2. She's never going to handwrite anything.
Yeah, I grew up speaking and writing and reading Arabic. And the other day I had to go back. I don't know where we were going somewhere. Oh, we're going to a wedding in Morocco. And I had to give you these cards, right? And you fill out the card. And they're like, all right. I was like, all right, well, I'm an Arab. I can write this in Arabic. And I'm like, wow, it's probably been 10 years since I've had to write in Arabic. And it's tough. You got to like think back. How do I do this?
Now this might sound ignorant, but isn't Arabic backwards?
Yeah.
To English?
Well, to you it's backwards.
Right.
To you
it's English backwards. Yeah.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that whole.
It's right to left. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's got to be confusing because you literally like have to learn how to write.
Yeah. It's cool. I mean, it sucks to say that I've forgotten, or not forgotten, but it's challenging. It shouldn't be challenging to write. But yeah, it's like you're saying, you don't need it. You don't use it anymore.
Yeah, no.
It's all typing. You guys all on a keyboard and you just type it all out.
Yeah. It's crazy because my wife and I were literally arguing about, do we teach the old way to these kids? And her argument was like, well, what if all the technology goes away? What if the power goes out? And I'm like,
batteries.
I'm like, there's so many.
Elon Musk will take care of it.
Right. So it's interesting because like I sit there and it's just so weird.
Yeah.
But But I'm thinking, and the only reason this is pertinent to this conversation is, DevOps to me feels this way. It's like when we talk to people that were born and raised at Wayfair or Google or Yahoo, they don't see the world. Like if you threw them into a Bank of America and told them to try and work the way they do, they'd be like,
I quit.
Well, we did.
Yeah.
I think I shared that with you, and I've shared it on the podcast before. Quit. We had a 40% attrition rate.
Totally.
From the new hires, all the new people.
Looking for devs.
Yeah.
Everyone's looking for developers.
No, it's amazing.
Won't stay. And companies are starting to realize that, right? Like, all right, well, good developers are going to leave if we don't do something about it.
Right.
And it's just accelerating that whole conversation for sure.
Yep. Yeah. No. To your point, when you said financial services was investing a lot in this, the interviews I went through like 6 or 7 interviews because I wasn't convinced that like they really wanted to transform. But every meeting they would pull up Wealthfront and they would show. Like right on Wealthfront's webpage, it says, we don't have a release cycle, we have a deploy button. And it shows the time of their last update to production.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's freaking crazy.
Cool.
But now think of your Merrill Lynch, you do 2 updates a year.
Yeah, you're also like...
They were really scared. And so that was one of the big initiatives that drove the entire growth of the group that I joined was, we have to fix this.
Break it down. Yeah, you have to break it down. I think at the time the value of why you'd break it down wasn't clear, right? We lived in a world where you're crazy to make changes because changes introduce risk and risk introduce incidents and incidents are bad and blah, blah, blah. But we've gotten comfortable with the notion that smaller changes are actually less impactful. And if they do break, we have faster ways to roll them back, right?
That's the key, right? The reverts.
Like shit hits the fan, just revert, AB, the deploys, blue, green, canary, whatever you want to use, right? Buzzword of the year.
Right.
But the focus is now, the emphasis on how do I get out faster versus how do I put something bad out there? Especially in if you're saving lives, don't do that, right?
Right.
But like if you're in retail, if you're in social media, if you're like banking, maybe UI, you have more leeway over like back-end systems, but you start to delineate like what are systems that I can do this with, and then start to do it right. And like our feature toggles, right? And you use those in your code base and you start using them. There's so many ways you need to use technology. And it's one thing I loved about Wayfair is you always use technology to solve your problem. Always. There's technology can solve. And if something fails and something breaks, it's because the technology failed you, not because someone made a mistake. You need to build a system in a way where even if someone makes a mistake, the system won't fail.
Yeah.
So if it does fail, there's something wrong with technology. Go build a system better. And then eventually you get a system that doesn't fail because of human error. And that mentality really, really resonated. It goes like all of engineering there thinks that way. It's fantastic.
That's incredible.
It's a good way to think, yeah.
It's such a huge difference between that and like a lot of the regulated companies we work with, because they just haven't made that transformation.
It's not easy. Like you have to remember, Wayfair has been around for 12 years, 13 years. I don't know. It's young, right? So, and again, I go back to the founders, and the founders were very adamant on take risks, move fast, and also they're in an industry where you're allowed to fail. Right. Worst thing that happens is you don't buy your couch. You come back in 5 minutes and buy the couch when the site comes back online. If you're saving lives,
right.
Yeah, I don't know. You shut down a hospital like mid-surgery, you kill 10 people, right?
Yeah,
so it's a little different.
I actually use this. It's always fun talking to customers because you learn, right? But a story that I learned was I was talking about the fact that I'm like 85% of changes that flow through an organization are just UI updates. They're low risk. There's nothing to. And it was a company that somehow like subbed out 911 operator work.
Oh, great.
And so they were the ones that wrote the software for like dispatch.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, but what you don't realize, and this is the same problem we have with our developers, they'll push something through that's low risk where they're changing the UI. And then all these 911 operators are typically not real technical people, and they're very used to their interface being a certain way. And then all of a sudden you rename the dispatch button to something else.
Yeah.
You don't think there's any impact. But those dispatch operators then go, where do I click to send somebody out? And so they were telling me that like you have to be careful by saying that. Like what you think is low risk, you have to look at the downstream dependencies. So
that's totally fair. 100%. Yeah. I mean, there is going to be those systems where it's like there are edge cases, right? Or just don't do it, right? Like I think medicine is one, or pharma, right? Finance is definitely just be aware. Well, like Cap One is a great example of how they've gotten around that, right? They do a ton of really, really high velocity DevOps. And they've built systems for it. They have their I think 20 step or 16 step, I don't know what they call it. But if all your checks pass, then you're good to go. And your checks include security scans, include this, that, and the other thing. So use technology, right? Lean into technology and use it to your advantage, right? And it doesn't mean simple. Someone the other day said, oh, you need a much simpler process to do DevOps. You got to simplify your process and then you. I was like, no, actually, it's a much more complex process.
Right. No,
it's
it really
way
is.
more complex than your change process or whatever. You're meeting twice a week and somebody's checking a box. It's super complicated and super complex, but it's technology and it's automated. It's not human.
That's the biggest thing, right? We can do, it's funny because there's more than one bank that's doing like 16 phase conditional statements on the. So this is talking about our auto approve change request thing. So basically, you set conditions in the product that say if these things meet, and if your test passing is greater than X percent, and if you're doing this, and if it's this environment, if it's that CI, whatever, it'll automatically approve it. And what's interesting is like what you're saying is what I've seen is not only are we taking it from like 23 days, which is what our average is right now for an old school change. We're taking it down to less than 5 minutes. But what's insane is, we're doing all sorts of stuff that you would never bring to a CAB meeting. Like those financial institutions, like, did you pass your Black Duck security scans? Your SEML scan, is our code quality up to, is this like, do you have code review done automatically through this system that's, and I was just watching a video about value stream management, and they were talking about how they identified this, the biggest problem in their value stream was code review. And I'm like, well, why didn't they just use one of the 20 products in the market to automate code review? Look for bugs, like SEML's good. There's a bunch of others out there.
Totally.
But it's just interesting to me because now we can add so many automated steps that we can still approve a change in 5 minutes that also has like 16 different tools that it's getting data from and checking from. Whereas in a CAB meeting, that would take you 2 hours to explain. Well, did you run all your Black Duck scans? What were the results? Well, okay, here they are. And
well, what's a Black Duck scan? Because I'm a storage guy and I don't know security, or I'm a security guy and I don't know virtualization. It's like it's very subjective.
But the computer, you just say if all of these conditions meet, go.
Non-negotiable, right?
Yeah, it's pretty slick.
All objective data-driven change, data-driven everything.
That's awesome. So that's the bot is in the store. That's really cool.
The bot's in the store. Yeah, check it out for sure. You get a 3-month free trial.
And so how do we find the bot? It's rapdev.io is the company name, right?
Rap.io is a website. Yeah, nice. Totally. Check it out. We're going to update the website very soon. The new website's going to be live before this goes out. So just go to the website.
I can almost guarantee it.
Rapdev.io, RAPDEV. The bot's already in the store. Go to the store and search Slack. It'll come up.
Nice.
RapDev bot. You can search Microsoft Teams as well. It'll also come up.
I'll try and remember to actually put the link in the
podcast. Right on.
So we'll get that out there.
Yeah, totally.
So what do you think about the second thing? Because that's the thing that I talk about daily for you.
Yeah, we got to get that on the store.
So let's talk about this Dev Karma thing because it is the most controversial thing I talk about. Like, I call it controversial because by and large, I've got this presentation of an hour down that I demo like 3 times a day in front of customers all the time.
Yeah, of course.
But the number one rabbit hole thing that I keep getting hit on is when I show committer score.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, wait, how are you calculating? Why is that? And just everybody freaks out about it. And then the story I tell is I was over in EMEA and the Germans are like, nope.
No,
well, I guess I should say
right?
9. 9. And they were basically saying that like they've got GDPR rules plus they're all unionized.
Yeah.
And they've got rules in Germany that say if there's any performance data for an individual, it cannot be visible to anybody else on any team. Like nobody else of their peers can use it. None of their management can like use it against them.
Really?
Yeah, it was really strict. So they just told me, they're like, the individual committer score will never fly here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, scratch Germany for
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about it a little bit. So what it is it's an automated risk engine. And you go ahead, you're way deeper on this than me, but so it's how we calculate
risk. It's not a risk engine. So we're using the ServiceNow policy. So yeah, I guess it's like a metric, right? We're trying to measure as best possible, still subjective, it's still got issues, it's never going to be perfect. But we're trying to, as close as possible, try to quantify the performance of a developer based on their history. Mm-hmm. Based on their history amongst many other things, right? So one of those, there's a few tools out there that'll do similar stuff. One of the cool things about doing it in ServiceNow is you get a lot of the organizational data that doesn't exist with the technical tools. So ServiceNow is aware of the organizations, aware of the hierarchies, aware of the tenure, right? How long you've been at the company. It's aware of your title. You're a senior, you're a junior, you're an intern. It's aware of your promotions, right? So there's all these different things that we can start taking into consideration, as well as all your technical data. So things like basically your development habits, right? Are you going under a rock for a month and then releasing 1,000 lines at a time? Or are you committing daily and you're just merging whatever you've got worked on and testing that and doing your builds and so on? So we look for these good habits versus bad habits, and we try to come up with a score. Like rollbacks is one of them. Reverts is one of them. We look at commit size, right? Change size. I think in the Git world it's called change size change, something like that. Basically, how many net adds and net removes, right?
Right, files that are being in
each
change.
Right. And then you look at things like, are you refactoring or are you developing? Because you want to take that into consideration. If you're refactoring, if it's an existing file, you're just refactoring some of it, then you don't get as many points as if you're building that new code. So we look at all these different things.
Yeah, so just you're super deep in this, and I almost used the buzzword refactoring earlier when you were talking. So for anybody that doesn't know refactoring, it's that idea of what he kept saying is developers love to refactor code. I read an amazing, it was either a book or an article, I can't remember now, but it was saying that while developers would spend all of their days refactoring their tech debt, so refactoring is taking code from 400 lines down to as streamlined as possible of getting a function to work. So 400 lines down to 50 or 10 that's called refactoring. So the challenge is a lot of companies won't fund refactoring projects because they want their developers writing new features or new stories and burning down backlog. So there's all this tech debt built up and website performance is getting crushed because they're not allowing these developers time to burn down their refactoring tech debt. But anyway, different topic. But
optimizing.
That's awesome that you actually take refactoring into the.
You try to, right? You're never going to get it. You're never always going to get it right. But you try to determine if it's a refactor, if it's net new code, based on the file changes and what files are part of the commit, etc. So we try to take all that into consideration. Now we try to come up with a score of one number. You roll all this up into one number. You could argue it's controversial. Yes. You could argue it's subjective. Yes. But if everyone's using the same number, then that number can be used in some objective manner, right?
Well, and so this is the conversation that's always controversial, and it's amazing because I think you're probably in the early reviewer list as well. But Gene's new book, the Unicorn Project, right? Yep. So he's got those 5 tenets, and I just shared this on LinkedIn and in his blog that he talks about it. But the 5 tenets, one of them is the key tenet that I think keeps a lot of companies from being successful, and it's the fact that it's called psychological safety. Yep. And when you start talking about a performance score, I mean, I can tell you, when I go back to my Bank of America days, every single person that's tenured at Bank of America would be like, oh, you're totally just going to use that to fire the top, the bottom 60% next year. You're going to just take those scores and use that against people. And so that's that psychological carrot versus stick conversation that has to change culturally first. But the carrot is supposed to be when you have a credit. That's why I call it the credit score or karma if you're a spiritual dude, right? Then it's if I get a high enough karma score, I go to heaven. The idea is that the credit score is when you have a high enough credit score, we give you access to production. Right. And so you get this greater access to automation and you get this greater access to production without being hindered. Yeah. So that's the whole idea is the carrot of the performance-based scoring.
It's so access to production. No, nobody ever needs to access production ever. Never log into a production server. Rule number 1.
Right. But even automatically pushing code.
Deploying 100% all day. Right. And I think it's, like you talk about gamification, right? Like how do you use that? And it's like, use in a condescending manner and say, hey, if you're below X, you're fired. Or you can say, hey, the top 3 each month are going to get a free week off. Yeah, so you've completely turned the dynamic, and nobody's at risk.
Is it sad that the psychological safety in my head went, yeah, you can have a free week off, but you're never going to get to take that time. But
exactly.
Culture again is like you've got to be able to actually give them time off.
You get a reward that okay, here's a $500 gift card. Every
cash
month
money,
right? Exactly, cash talks. Right?
Make it rain.
Instead of saying, hey, we have these scores, nobody's doing anything about them, but we have them. Right. And if we need them, we're going to use them. Just gamify it. Or what's $500? It's an outing, right? I don't know. Right. It's a dinner.
Yeah.
It goes. If someone gave me $500, oh yeah, I'll write better code all day, right? I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So gamification, I think, and not just as it pertains to dev karma. Generally, gamification is a good way for that psychological safety layer, right? we're not going to fire you. And I think another one I touched on earlier is if something breaks, it's the fault of the system.
Right.
It's not the fault of the engineer. Nobody wakes up and says, today I feel like taking the site down. Let me go do that, right? Nobody wakes up and says that.
No.
But if you can get to a point where...
I can tell you, I never purposefully wrote a bad line of code. I just really suck.
Yeah, exactly. You don't wake up and say, hey...
I always had the greatest intentions.
And you got to come to terms with that, right? You can't fire someone for writing bad code. You just got to... The whole culture, and this is the challenging part with these transformations are not easy because it's hard to change that culture. And it has to be a top-down shift. It can't be, we're going to start this whole thing where if something's broken, it's the system, and then 2 weeks later, someone takes the site down and your SVP is all pissed off.
Right.
You can't be, right? You got to come to terms that this is going to happen. Everyone's human.
Right.
And you got to find a way, and it takes time to kind of adjust and to adapt, but once you get over that hump, you get to a level where everyone's a lot more, you build the velocity, you build the momentum, there's less fear, right? And you get to a point where everyone's like, all right, everyone knows I'm not going to get fired. I'm going to write good code. I'm going to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. I click this button and it rolls it back and I'm good to go, right? So
yeah, I'm actually so jealous nowadays of like younger dudes coming up, or dudes, being very gender biased there, sorry. Younger folks in our industry coming up who are, they're never going to see the stress we saw.
Yeah.
Like, my hair used to be here, like that's where my widow's peak was, and these guys were like down here. And it's entirely because of the fact that like since 2005, I think that's when I went over and worked with Kasia. Yeah, EMC days. 2005 is when I kind of entered the world of disaster recovery and CDP, continuous data protection, and all this crap. And we were living in a world where we knew failures were coming, but we were physically limited by the amount of data that we needed to move, the amount of bandwidth that was available literally in the industry.
It's physics.
It was just physics. And so we never had this luxury that we have today, because once developers figured out how to change the entire dynamic of code, and so that things weren't stateful, things were completely stateless, could run in multiple data centers at once. They figured out the data and the transfers. I mean, that now is so incredible that, and the reason I triggered on that was because in my world, our view was something's going to break and then it's going to be a race. You're going to be exposed for X amount of minutes, days, hours, whatever. And then we have to fail over. We're going to lose data. We know we're going to lose some amount of data, but we got to minimize it. And it's like in the new world, if you can change that whole view, that's a non-topic. It's like if you build the system to be able to withhold, and you built the architecture correctly to withstand errors and failures and like blue, green, and canaries and all that other stuff, then you can minimize your impact, right?
Build layers, totally.
Which, like I said, I'm jealous because growing up in that IT world, it would be so much less stressful, because I know a lot of my friends were stressed out our whole careers.
I was definitely very, very, very fortunate to have been at Wayfair when I was. And I think you're jealous. I would not have been lucky enough if I hadn't been at the right place at the right time. And I think I don't say this enough, but if I hadn't been at Wayfair during the 3 years I was there, I would have missed out on all that, right? Just the talent, the engineering levels, and that's why I always say I'll go back there tomorrow if everything goes belly up and I need a job. I mean, they might not take me. They might say, no, I don't need you anymore, and they probably will. But that's the first place I'd go, right? I'd go knocking on that door and say, hey, I'd love to work back here.
Your humility is astounding, man.
Nah, it's really like the people there I've learned a ton from, and I bet if I was still there, I could still learn a ton from. Like, a hallway conversation would be, and if anyone from Wayfair hears this, they'll know who I'm talking about. It would be like, oh yeah, back in the 80s when I worked for Intel and designed like the semiconductor, this, that, and the other thing, they wouldn't let me put my name in the code because it was a classified project. And I was like, holy crap, right? Like that's the caliber of people. You're like, oh, when I worked in the FBI and I did this, that, and that, I couldn't get credit for it because it was top secret. And I was like, wow. That's incredible. So you're exposed to that on a daily basis, and you're like, wow, like you can really ask these people anything, and they'd have answers and answers and answers. It's great. It was really, really cool. Very cool.
Yeah, for sure. So back to the karma thing,
You really love the karma.
Dude, I love that thing. Well, because
here's the... get on the store.
The only reason... Yeah, you got to get that on the store.
Yeah.
So first off, I tell every customer about it when I'm speaking.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
So so there's two things I wanted to touch on before we get off that topic. But the first was like a very simple. So we built in. I had nothing to do with it. Like I said, the DevOps engineering team, who are brilliant. Thank you guys. But they built in like a very rudimentary thing right off the bat, just to kind of showcase the committer score for us, right? Which is like
I've seen it, yeah.
Right. And it's, I mean, I don't think anybody will ever use it as a metric per se. And if they do, it is very rudimentary. Okay, so you start at a 50.
Yeah.
When you have successful job runs, we add 3 points to your score. And then
run?
Yeah, it's based on job run.
Okay.
And if your job run fails,
that's cool.
Then we subtract 3 from your score.
So
it's super rudimentary.
Got
It's
it.
They call it the black box, kind of out of the box demo of what we're doing with committer score. So it's just supposed to give somebody like a baseline to see how did we do that, and then you can go in there and you can add whatever KPIs you have.
Well, that's the thing, right?
You guys have like 17 different.
Yeah, we use 17 metrics to come up with our number. Now I know why we didn't put it on the store.
Spark of memory.
Yeah, because we didn't want to put the logic on the instances. We wanted to build an app that you would call with the metrics. We would generate the score and send it back. That's exactly why. Yeah,
very nice.
Light bulb just went off. We didn't want to put our logic on every single ServiceNow instance where you could go and reverse engineer it. Yeah. I think that's too much work. We'll probably just strip it out. But yeah, now I know why it has a bonus.
There you go.
Yeah, 17 metrics. Yeah,
I reminded you. Well, the 17 metrics is huge because
Yeah, we had to do a lot of tweaking to get it to work right. In a scalable manner. Because when we first did it, you'd be like, your score was like 2, 3, 4, and then like 7,000, right? And it's like, well, what happened? Okay, when I was so I could go back and like tune them, we do like multipliers and all this other crap.
Well, yeah. So you mentioned gamification, and that was what. So Colin O'Brien, huge shout out to Colin. He's one of the smartest dudes I know.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
But he says that people will start to game. If you're using it incorrectly, people will gamify it themselves against the system.
Oh, yeah.
And like even if you know the metrics, like the successful job runs, then I'll just send I'll change the name of one thing job run, name of one thing job run.
White space deploys. All day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that is where you have to use this stuff correctly so that it can be beneficial.
Totally.
So anyway, but these are good mics. That's going to be picked up for sure.
Yeah, it is. Someone just walked by with their FaceTime. I think they're talking to their kids or something.
Yeah. So go back to you were talking about the 17 metrics and how you guys had to tweak it and tune it to get it perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, so one other thought, if you're bringing back yours, was at the bank we were trying to implement SAML.
SAML.
Is it SAML or SAML? Yeah.
SAML. SAML authentication.
No. SEMMLE. SEML. They
SEML,
just got bought by.
Okay.
I think Microsoft bought them.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Microsoft or Google.
Got it. What do they do?
I'll have to go Google. So they were kind of cutting edge, and what they were able to do was dig. It was actually from the second I'm in the IDE.
Yeah.
Listen to me, old school developer IDE.
Yeah.
The new cool kids don't even use IDEs.
Yeah.
So if you're in GitHub, you would commit commit your code, and when you do a commit. One of the things, it's basically code scanning. Yeah. So it would scan your code that you're about to commit before it would ever build. And it had all these pattern recognition built into it to look for, recursive queries, to look for, and it was basically trying to capture code quality metrics before it actually even built.
The commit.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And so they were doing some really advanced things, but the sales pitch to me, I always tell the story that when I was there, I was getting sales pitches every day.
Sure.
Everybody wanted to sell to me.
Right.
But these guys actually, I had like 3 meetings with them and was moving forward because they caught my attention because they said at one point, they go, we are trying to implement a system that allows you to get visibility into the developers.
Yep.
So you know the difference between a person that only writes 3 releases a month, but has never written a bug in 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And every single line of code they read is refactored as possible, and it's perfect.
Yep.
Whereas you might get a knucklehead like Eric Ledyard who commits 100 commits a month, but 98 of those were fixing the bugs that he's caused with the 2 that he submitted at the beginning of the month, right? Yeah. But it's that difference because if I just look at one metric,
you can't tell.
If it's just commits per month, I do that demo every day showing our insights. If you only look at commits per month, you'd be like, Eric Ledyard's the winner. That guy only did 3 commits this month. Eric did 100. But if you get all this other factors, then you start saying, well, Eric Ledyard wrote 98 bug fixes for bugs he caused.
Oh, yeah. Or lines
and
of code.
This person hasn't introduced a bug in 2 years.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So it's that multiple KPI and the multiple lenses that you're looking at.
Yeah. With the new product, you can run like Sonar Cube scans and bring that data in, right? And then factor that into all your And the cool thing is that it's structured data, so it doesn't matter what tool it's coming in from. It just becomes normalized and consumable, and then you can use that for whatever reason. So I think that's pretty cool. That there's a lot of value in being able to normalize data from whatever tool devs want to use, right? And then just put it in the middle, capture it, and then leverage it for metrics, leverage it for approvals, for whatever the use case may be.
So you just ignited another light bulb in my head. So one of the geeked out things, we're already over an hour, but that's okay. This will be, I think, worthwhile. Quick, yeah. But the big piece that we released in 1.6, so you're closer to our code base than even I am. I like get updates from product, but you're actually doing this stuff every day. But 1.6 brought out packageable integrations. Yeah. So help me tell a better story on this, because I often tell customers and people that I'm presenting this to, I'm like, everybody and their brother says they can integrate with every tool. Yeah. But what they mean is a very painful integration that's API based. You'd have to know my data model. You'd have to know every function call. You'd have to know all of my, transform mapping that you'd have to do perfectly. My understanding of our packageable integrations is that takes all that off the table, and it makes it really easy to integrate just using Flow Designer. And my understanding of it, very rudimentarily, Corey, huge props. Yes. He tried to explain this to me, and I probably wasn't getting it, but he said basically there's we have coding tools, execution tools, we have testing tools, we have all these stuff. And they build one master workflow in Flow Designer that says, here's the 4 functions that we need you to actually meet. And then if you have anything else custom, you just build a subflow for it. But they don't have to know all the underlying APIs or all the data models or anything else.
Interesting.
Have you seen that? Have you worked with that yet?
Not. I've worked with the underlying APIs. We're building a Azure DevOps integration for it right now.
Oh yeah, you can plug that too, because that comes out right when we GA this.
We're releasing it with GA, yeah. So we'll have Azure. Any customer that decides to work with us, we're giving it away for free. But we will support Azure DevOps. But that's not using this new integrator. That's actually using the API that was built. And I have to connect with Kit on that. But I didn't know about that. I gotta check it out. That might make our life a lot easier.
Yeah, he was explaining it to me, and it was so in 1.5 we came out with our API, and then in 1.6 a month later we came out with these packageable integrations, which they seem super cool to me. Nice. And Kit, if I let you down, I'm sorry, but that's how it was explained to me, and to me it seemed to just make sense. It was
I mean, if it's pre-built and it sounds like you're just referencing variables through the flow instead of having to make API calls.
That was kind of how I understood it.
Yeah, that's how you explained it.
Yeah, well, I'm glad it came through, but I don't know if it's true, so Kit can keep me honest.
Yeah, I'll take his brain.
And everybody else can flame me if I'm wrong.
After this podcast, he's still on West Coast. No, he's East Coast now.
He's in Orlando now. Yeah.
Florida.
He's a Floridian.
Florida.
Yeah.
Nice. We just gave away his city.
The place that never changes.
Man.
But yeah, anyway, man.
This has been cool. Yeah, it's been really cool.
So you guys did all API-based integrations, yeah?
Yes.
And so, how has been your experience with that? Because I'd love to get some real world.
Yeah, it's been really
I always say we are like the enterprise message bus for service management and for all these things, and it's super easy to integrate with us. Am I lying, or
no? You're not.
Is the system really easy to work with?
It's pretty easy. Yeah, it's the product is pretty easy to work with. It's just structured tables, and it's very well documented. Yeah, it is. It's easy to work with. I think the challenge might be transforming some of the payloads from the tools coming into ServiceNow. There's obviously a few ways to tackle that, right? Either in ServiceNow or putting an application in the middle, which is the route we took just because of scalability. But yeah, it's super simple. It's really easy to use. Absolutely. We use it for everything. I mean, 95% of our work in ServiceNow is API driven, code driven.
Nice.
Not a lot of UI, yeah. Well, Flow Designer too, but that you can lump that into the same category. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the whole reason the packageable integrations came out is because kind of the future of ServiceNow is to go all through Integration Hub as much as possible.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah.
It does make sense.
Cool, man. Anything else you want to touch on?
I think
I could talk to you for 10 hours, but I don't think anybody will listen to it.
Yeah, like yesterday, right?
For sure.
No, this is good. It's been pretty long. It's been, an hour and 8 minutes?
Yep.
I wonder if anyone's going to get to the end. Let's put like a little secret, code at the end and say, if you got this far, you're entitled to 100 hours of free wrap dev work with any contract you sign. How's that?
I love it.
That's good, right?
That's
great.
Who
gets to the end.
Yeah, that's a hell of a tag.
100 hours, yeah, that's a lot. That's $30,000 worth of value right there. Get to the end.
100 hours of this.
Not me. No, I'm not. This is the guys. It's the guys that do the work.
Oh, you're so humble.
Let's see who gets to it.
I
That's
love
cool.
it, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Cool, man.
much, dude.
Eric,
This was
thanks, man.
awesome.
Appreciate it. Very formal. Give me
Yeah.
a normal. Thanks, Dan.
Bye, guys.
Take care.